Like the towers, our republic is fallen, but the revolution and rescue to restore it has begun. How do we do it? Not with demonic Democrats and Republican rats, not with CIA, FBI, and State Department who murder and rape children and import fellow cartel and Taliban pedos to do the same. Instead, look to those who did and died, who served and sacrificed. Remember NYFD Chief Palmer and Fire Marshal Buka, who understood the danger, ran into the towers, and died there so that others may live. Remember Tom Burnett, Mark Bingham, Todd Beamer, and Jeremy Glick, who gathered intel, made a plan, said the Lord's Prayer, then shouted their war cry, "Let's roll," and counterattacked on Flight 93. Remember Jeremy's mother-in-law, who told his wife Liz, "Make him brave." Remember Liz telling him, "You are brave, you are strong, you should do this." Then, having sent her husband to her death, went to the bathroom to throw up. Remember Rick Riscola, Brit, then American paratrooper, survivor of the Ia Trang battle, who predicted the 9/11 air attack, evacuated almost as many as were lost, and then died going back in to save more. Remember the firefighters who responded unasked nationwide and sacrificed their health and lives, rescuing the living and recovering the dead from the ruins. Remember real Avengers, ODAs 595 and 555, who inserted deep behind enemy lines in Afghanistan with no QRF. Resist, rebel, refuse, and revolt the traitors and all their rules and ruses. Emulate our heroes, dead and alive. The way is hard but true, and so must we become. I'm a retired SOCOM soldier, former DIA intelligence officer, and ex-DEA special agent targeted by the deep state, turned whistleblower warrior. Served and sabotaged, rejected and redeemed, failed and forgiven, betrayed and saved, rejecting revenge, humbled and blessed, repurposed in redemption, as chaplain, leader, teacher, and truth teller. Now America's intelligence officer, following God, leading my family, and any that choose to join on our long trail of tears walk to freedom and faith. Welcome. I'm Jeff Prather, and this is the Prather Point. Hey, welcome everybody. Glad to be with you. See some folks on Rumble already. Nobody on X yet. Hope you get on there so we can have a great dialogue. Really important show today. Really important subject and special guest. But before we get there, the title is Special Surviving Post-Shooting Prosecution, and we will get into that in detail. But before we get to that, the TRANNY killer was an FBI false flag likely to stigmatize Israel critics. That's very much likely what happened with Westman with the shooting school. So let me jump into that right away. So the Minneapolis Catholic school shooter's weapons were allegedly marked with anti-Semitic messages. Again, we're seeing these same patterns. I was a DEA, Drug Enforcement Administration special agent, 1811 senior special agent, complex criminal investigator. With all of these TRANNY shooters, it's obvious that there are patterns. The SSRIs, the violent video games, the TRANNYism. So, you know, behavioral science and the FBI could really connect these things if they wanted to. But again, I'm pretty sure that they are behind that. And this is the latest of those. And you always got to look at the timing. So the suspected shooter, Robin Westman, allegedly wrote Jew gas and 6 million wasn't enough on gun parts and smoke grenades. And of course, at the Annunciation Church on Wednesday morning, August 27th in Minneapolis, he shot two children, wounded 14, and he shot the children sitting in the pews. In my handgun martial arts class, I actually teach how to sidestep out of pews or out of movie aisles, and also how to turn as well. That's an example of advanced handgun martial arts techniques that I teach. But regardless, he killed two children aged 8 and 10, injuring 17 others, then died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. And the Anti-Defamation League's Center on Extremism writing said the attack featured anti-Semitic and anti-Israel references, praise for mass killers across the ideological spectrum. And here's where it gets real interesting. A YouTube account believed to have belonged to Westman shared videos prior to a shooting, which showed gun parts and smoke grenades and Nazi messaging. 6 million wasn't enough. Of course, that's reference to the 6 million Jews holocausted in World War II. Burn Israel. Israel must fall. And then Here is the interesting part. Destroy HIAS. Destroy HIAS, a reference to the Jewish humanitarian organization. They don't even say what it is. It says HIS was targeted online by Robert Bowers, a man convicted of murdering 11 Jews in the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh in 2018. HIS has been made aware that our name appeared on the weapons used in the Minneapolis Annunciation Church. The organization said the tragic and senseless attack echoes the 2018 Pittsburgh synagogue shooting as well. And like Lanza, Westman reportedly attended the school that he is alleged to have attacked. And last week, the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, released a study that showed violent extremist organizations attacking anti-Semitic groups. But, and of course, I, as a Christian chaplain and as a Christian, I pray for the fallen and their families. But it's very interesting because, I'm about to go give this speech in Iowa for Team America Iowa to end human trafficking, transhumanism, and tyranny. That's September 13th at the FFA Enrichment Center. And you can call 712-389-0717, 712-389-0717 to sign up. I'm the keynote speaker there. I don't have two screens, so I'll just show you the poster there. But one of the things I'm going to talk about is HIAS, the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, is one of the organizations I will call out for child trafficking via the United States government grants in my Iowa presentation. Now, notice in the article they never say what HIS stands for. It stands for the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society. It's one of the religious organizations working with the federal government, including Catholic Council on Bishops, Lutheran Council, a lot of them, that are at the government feeding trough bringing in children illegally, the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society. Now, how would a mentally ill, tired of being trained kid know about HIAS? This reminds me of 15 years ago about a black contact wearing cyber stalker and gaslighter troll, Jared Armitage, so able to find and repost the obscure and falsified Merit Service Protection Board, MSPB, firing decision when the DEA fired me after 19 years on the job without ever a bad evaluation, without ever being charged, without ever being convicted for exposing the Sinaloa cartel deal with DEA. The DEA agents swore to under oath in the Niebla Zambada federal trial, you can look it up, that the DEA did have a deal with the Sinaloa cartel for the Fast and Furious guns to go south, for Sinaloa drugs to go north. But they published this, first of all, the document was falsified and it was trying to make me out to be a pervert. And then they also tried to say it was a court document, which it was not. But how would this guy, this black contact wearing troll who was obsessed with me for 10 years on every website, how would he ever even find the MSPB site? He didn't. It was fed to him. How did this shooter find HIAS? He didn't. It was fed to him. So I think that's very clear. Further than that, for more, so that's intelligence analysis. For some evidence there, the FBI briefed nihilistic accelerationism, which is what this guy, that's what the label of this guy is, about 6 months ago. The FBI is famous for infiltrating or running everybody in every group, yet we are supposed to buy that after focusing on accelerations just 6 months back, they had no visibility on this monster. More likely they prepped him and were in on it again, as we see over and over. So the manifesto has come out and been online. And of course, they're definitely showing the guns is, kill Trump. And of course, we've already heard about the anti-Semitic slurs, which is really inaccurate because anybody from the Middle East is Semitic. It doesn't pertain to Jews. And almost everybody in Israel is an Ashkenazi, a European Jew, not a native. But in the comments of this article, there was a comment that said, at the start of this year, the FBI held a seminar warning about domestic terror threats stemming from nihilistic accelerationism. I was at the FBI briefing just 6 months ago when nihilistic acceleration was a hot topic and is an emerging threat. Not sure what happened to that priority, but they were very much surveilled at the time. So this is a law enforcement official saying he was at an FBI seminar where they were talking about this 6 months ago, and the FBI confided that nihilistic accelerationists like Westman were being surveilled 6 months ago. So how did they drop the ball? And of course, like with Ruby Ridge, like with Waco, I don't think they dropped the ball. I think they were in on it. Further evidence of that is Seth Holhouse has confirmed the findings of other internet sleuths that the parents of the Catholic school trans shooter, Robin Westman, were divorced in 2012. And someone had tweeted a screenshot of the divorce record, the Minnesota case number 19HAFA12935. The case type is dissolution without child. This was a record, an official record. Dissolution without child would suggest that Robert was not their child in 2012, since the court recorded the couple as not having a minor child when he would have been 10 years old. Seth says he confirmed and saw the records on the Minnesota State website with his own eyes on August 29th. 4 hours before we recorded this podcast, he saw a total of 5 court cases with Mary Grace Westman, one of which was the dissolution without child. Shortly before recording, he decided to double check the website. To his surprise, the divorce record was gone. Who can change official government websites? The government. And so this is another covert false flag where they are cleaning, where their incompetence makes them corrupt, makes them incompetent. If you're going to be an undercover, if you're going to be a raid guy, whatever you're going to do, you got to do a lot of it to get good at it. You got to be, it's an art. There's an art to wiping your butt. But if you're faking everything, you're not good at it. You leave all kinds of things undone. And this court record was undone. So why would they hide that information? Because the TRANNY kid was planted there only recently. And I'm reached out to Seth Holhouse to see if he will guest in the near future. But especially, who has the ability to steal such records on the eve of Labor Day weekend, and why would they want them sealed? So the Independent reports that Mary Grace hired criminal defense attorney Ryan Gary, known for representing Colin Kaepernick, remember him, during his role in the George Floyd psyop. So this looks like it is another false flag. And part of that is to, again, silence any critics of Israel's genocide in Gaza. I'm getting hit hard and losing supporters for calling that out, and for also telling the truth about that. So the attack on a Catholic parish shifts because this program guy hates the Jews. So that's Michael T. Senior 56 asking, I'm saying that the deep state is shifting away from Israel, the criticism that is widely acceptable at this point. And this is how they are doing it. So remember, false flags are not the exception. Vietnam War started with the Tonkin Gulf, false flag. They are the norm. It is very common. So that's what's happening with that TRANNY killer, an FBI false flag to stigmatize Israeli critics. But also, there's a Chinese-Mexico fentanyl boss that evades U.S. extradition. Now, remember, I became a whistleblower in Fast and Furious because I was extraditing Miguel Carapintero, brother of Rafael, who tortured and murdered our agent Kiki Camarena. Very famous case. And then I saw, I knew the folks that carried BORTAC, Border Patrol agent Brian Terry, out of the canyon, who was murdered with 2 Fast and Furious guns. Last time I was on Fox News was when they were trying to, the government was trying to exclude the 2 AK-47s, the murder weapons, from the Brian Terry murder trial. And they did successfully. And my statement to Laura Ingraham was, why would you exclude the murder weapons from a murder trial unless you are trying to cover something up? And the government's trying to cover up that they ran guns, because that was the script that Obama and Clinton wanted out there, that Mexican gun violence was because of American gun dealers. Cartel leaders were coming up to Arizona and Texas and buying massive amounts of guns for their cartels. Wasn't true, was never true. Now, the amount of guns that were traced were to America, but that was the United States government, the USG, selling them to the GOM, government of Mexico, and having records. But of the almost 3,000 guns run by the ATF, remember ATF started the DEA, I was the liaison agent, none of them were traced. Therefore, there was no chain of custody ever. Therefore, there never could be a case. They were simply gun running and drug running and trying to put that on honest American gun dealers. They even tried to arrest one of the gun dealers. And they're like, you sold a gun to a criminal. And the guy said, well, yeah, I got a tape recording of you telling me to do that, ATF. And so the ATF has been doing this since Ruby Ridge, since Waco, and since Oklahoma bombing. And actually, on Thursday, I'm going to have an expert on the Oklahoma bombing on. But this reminds me of my extradition efforts of Miguel Caro Quintero, because there was a Chinese fentanyl financer who evaded U.S. extradition after a daring Mexico City tunnel escape. And so this is Ji Dongzhang, born in Beijing in 1987, described as Chino, which is Chinese in Spanish. And he bridged the Chinese and Mexican wings of the cartel fentanyl networks, and significantly is alleged to serve as a rare operative between Mexico's two largest rival trafficking groups, the Sinaloa and Jalisco Nueva Generation cartels, and China. Remember, all the fentanyl comes from China, the precursors to the west coast of Mexico, and are assembled there. I never did a fentanyl bust. Fentanyl, as far as I'm concerned, is a straight bioweapon, while cocaine, heroin, marijuana are drug products. But here we see, remember, I've talked about how Trump has multiple wars to wage. He has the cartel wars to wage. He has the China tariff war to wage. Here we see an inflection point between Trump's tariff war. And again, I gave Trump a lot of credit for that, even though I'm criticizing him right now a lot for being the first one to do anything in 20 years of unrestricted warfare against China's unrestricted warfare was Trump's tariff war, which was really just focused on China, and his cartel war, bringing the military. In fact, that's how I was dual credentialed initially, back when I was a DEA special agent and a DIA intelligence officer simultaneously. Dual credentialed as a federal law enforcement agent and as an intelligence officer, and I was also in a special mission intelligence unit at the same time. So I could do a lot of things. CONUS, Continental United States, and OCONUS, outside Continental United States, legally under different hats. But this guy has been able to get away. And according to U.S. court filings out of Georgia, he directed the preparation of cocaine and fentanyl shipments in Mexico, ranging smuggling into the U.S. by couriers using vehicles and aircraft. He also oversaw underground stash houses, cash brokerages, where cartel proceeds were collected, counted, and deposited into major U.S. banks, including, and here we go again, J.P. Morgan yet again, Wells Fargo yet again, Bank of America, Chase yet again. A raid on one California stash house revealed approximately 150 companies, approximately 170 bank accounts connected to Zhang's organization, wire transfer records, corporate registration information, indictment filings, approximately 20 million in proceeds that were deposited into a bank accounts controlled by Zhang's organization between 2020 and 2021. And experts such as DEA Special Operations Division, yes, that Special Operations Division where I've talked about, that's where they have SIGINT intelligence collectors passing intelligence, classified intelligence, to federal law enforcement sitting over here and developing your own probable PC, parallel PC, fruit of the poisonous tree that I've talked about before. It's that Special Operations Division said that the operator at Zhang's level often maintained significant ties to Chinese Communist Party, both through underground banking and money laundering networks. And of course, that goes right back to American banking because it's big money. And what has happened to this guy? He is now in the wind. He bought his way out, and probably with a lot of help from CIA. Remember, the CIA was there when they were torturing and murdering Kiki Camarena. And finally, Israel has assassinated Yemen's prime minister. And so this is a huge story that I've got to tell you about, because Israel has just carried out a brazen and legally questionable airstrike in Sana'a, assassinating Yemen's Houthi-appointed Prime Minister Ahmed al-Raoul and several cabinet ministers. So this assassination extends Israel's controversial military actions beyond Gaza because they're going for greater Israel, like I've told you many times. The killing of a civilian political leader raises concerns about the limits of Israel's military actions. The strike occurred outside of active combat and a targeted head of government, violating the principle of distinction in international humanitarian law. Experts argue that this was an extrajudicial execution, not an act of self-defense, and thus constitutes an act of war. This is the same thing that has happened since I called out October 7th as a stand down by the IDF, and General Flynn came on the show and backed me up. And of course, the United States has provided Israel with the bombs, funding, and diplomatic cover to enable such operations. But this is a brazen and legally dubious airstrike, and this is escalating more violence, even though Trump has said, hey, you should get Gaza over with. Not hey, what about all the women and children killed in Gaza, but you should just get Gaza over with. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz offered no apologies. He compared the operation to Israel's longstanding policy of assassinating leaders of Hamas, which is not the same thing. Hamas is a terrorist organization. Counter-terrorist units going after nation state terrorist organizations is one thing. Going after a head of state is assassination, much like they were trying to do with Trump, with Ruthie and the Not Crooks assassination attempt that the CIA and Secret Service was in on. That anybody, and remember again, I've done diplomatic security. I've guarded foreign presidents of state as well. The last presidential candidate I guarded was Santorum. I have a lot of experience in doing that. The Secret Service had to be in on that for sure. No one is that incompetent. So this is Israel escalating more conflict, which is lining right up with biblical revelation prophecy as well. And further, it has been recently leaked that former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak met with Jeffrey Epstein to discuss arranging a meeting with Palantir co-founder Peter Thiel in 2014, just in 2014. And the emails were part of a cache of over 100,000 messages hacked and released by a group, Handala, showing that. So another reason why Trump may be covering up the Epstein list, which we have, this is the line in the sand for us. This is the hill we die on. It's not okay to kidnap, rape, torture, and murder little girls for intelligence agencies to exist. But again, Peter Thiel is in there in the White House right now, and that is very crucial to understand. So give me some of that. Jan called them out for trafficking across the, yeah, I'm talking to Jan all the time. He's back in Japan, so I haven't been able to have him back on, but Jan is great. I will get him back on real soon. But now, before I go into anything else, I want to get to my guest. And so the title is Special Surviving Post-Shooting Prosecution. And what that means is, I've been a federal firearms instructor since 1993, and I've taught all branches of the military, including the Coast Guard, all the intelligence agencies, all the federal agencies, literally trained tens of thousands, highly published in SWAT Mag and other tactical magazines. And a really important part of the fight, beyond having a custom weapon, and there you see the Prather Protector, 26 frame, 17, real nice and fancy, lots of great features. Got the HMAC oath on the barrel, because when Danny Klein at Klein Tactical stood up his company, wanted me to endorse it. So lots of really cool features on this weapon. So a lot of teeth, little tail, bob-tailed, so there's no printing there. I got my barrel blocker in there. Says "We answer" on the tip of the barrel there. Real cool. But you really don't even need really a custom firearm as much as you need something else. And I just grabbed a couple of the IDs I used to have to carry when I was working. These are DIA. I didn't grab my own credentials, but there's all kinds of stuff I had to carry, different IDs, different phone numbers. One phone number I always carried in my credential was my attorney's. And in Tucson, that's Mike Picaretta. And if you're in Tucson, if you want the best, Mike Picaretta is the guy. So that if I was if I was in a shooting, that's who I called. And now I didn't have to use him as a shooter, but I did use him when the government came after me multiple times, and he was great. So that needs to be in your wallet. But that began with CIA operatives after 9/11, when they pulled out the stops and they were waterboarding and stuff and going after bin Laden. This is when personal liability insurance began with CIA case officers. But those are different organizations, different insurance requirements for civilians. So the one I liked was the Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network. I had on Marty Hayes and for a long time, and that was my card that I carried for a long time. And I liked them because they would send your attorney money. A lot of the organizations would say, well, once you win your case, then we'll reimburse you. Well, you've lost your house, you've lost your car by then. I know. The DEA came after me from 04 to 09. It cost me $75,000. I had 5 attorneys on staff, and they never even charged me. I was never even convicted. That was just me getting ready for all this, not to mention all the emotional damage that happens with that as well. So it really behooves you, the next part of the fight. A lot of people don't think about this, just like a lot of people don't think about quality holsters, and they don't think about quality belts. You got to think about after the fight, because there's a fight after the fight. I remember and because I was the DEA firearms expert, I had to go to a lot of trials. I remember the last one I went to was a DEA agent. The guy pointed a gun at him in the car, and he backed up and shot him, and then he came forward and shot him. And he wasn't criminally charged, but he was civilly liable, not for backing up, but when he came forward again because he ran into a dirt pile. And that's in Tucson because Tucson's liberal. So really, the good guys are the bad guys. The bad guys are the good guys under today's law. So you want to have protection set up. You don't want to try and figure this out in the middle of an aftermath. In fact, DEA, back in my day, the DEA manual said that you aren't even supposed to talk about it for 48 hours. You're supposed to go calm down because your adrenaline's up. You're going to run your mouth. You're going to say stuff you're not supposed to. You're supposed to be isolated. We used to have to tell our local police, hey, DEA takes possession of the weapon, because we used to be in so many shootings, not now, but back in my day when DEA was a real organization. And the local police said, no, we're taking the weapon. Like, no, we're taking the weapon. And so we'd agree to disagree, but we'd tell them ahead of time because we knew from experience that you'd say things that you shouldn't, that you remember things, get your story straight, calm down. That's actually the policy, because back in my day, we were in so many shootings. So this is a really, really important thing to have. And a while back, I got a letter from CCW Safe with Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network there, saying, hey, we are taking over Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network. And that was from Kent Brown. So I reached out to Kent. He was very gracious. And I asked him to come on to talk about the new policies. Because again, what really stood out with the old policy was they gave you money for your attorney up front. I think it was 10 grand. And one of the shootings that they did in Tucson was a guy actually shot. He was armed, and the assailants he shot were unarmed. And I actually knew everybody in there. I knew the police officer that responded. I knew the guy because he was a foreign weapons expert that I used for my military classes. So I knew everybody in that case. I knew it real well. And what happened was Tucson police and the prosecutor said he came out with the gun in his hand as opposed to in his holster, because Tucson police did not put the holster in evidence. They were sloppy. So it looked like he came out with a gun in his hand, proactively escalating the situation rather than reacting and drawing from the holster. And that took years, but they backed him up and did a really good job. So that's why I went. Now, full disclosure as always, because I'm a longtime firearms instructor and have students all across the country, my membership fee was waived. And I just want to tell you that up front. But I'm really impressed now with CCW Safe. They've got some cool new advantages. There's my new card, CCW Safe. Okay. But I like these little key fobs that are even better in case I don't have, and one and two, one for my wife's key fob and one for me. That's great. That's a great little thought. And they have lots of stuff, but I really want to get into that in detail to show, in case you haven't gotten anything from Armed Citizens Defense Network. And also, if you are brand new to this, because I do have new HMAC shooters on my patreon.com/Jeffrey Prather. If you want to sign up and train with me, that's at the Point Patriot level, at the $25 level, you can do that. But regardless of whether you're not, you should have this coverage. And I want to go over that in detail with you. And the best place to do that is with the new CEO, Kent Brown. Kent, welcome to the Prather Point.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Glad to be here.
So that's a lot I'm jumping in and covering a lot, but before we jump into anything, did you want to comment on any of the issues I was raising?
Well, I mean, I won't go into too much detail, but I think particularly those situations in the Middle East are very disturbing. And I don't know if the general U.S. citizen understands the weight of what's going on over there. And of course, as you mentioned, as Christians, you know, what's happening against Israel is something we don't take it seriously.
Fair enough, fair enough. But the point is, the government's happy to set you up.
That's for sure.
Yeah. So you were gracious enough to explain the new organization to me, and so I kind of like to start at the beginning how the Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network has been bought, I guess, subsumed into CCW Safe, and take it from there.
Sure. Yeah. On July 1st, CCW Safe and our parent company did the acquisition of the Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network. It's been something that had been in the works for a while. I had known Marty Hayes probably for a little over a year. And of course, he's very well known in our industry, very well known in the firearms trainers industry and groups. And he and his wife Gila, of course, had founded that business, has been around for a very, very long time and very well thought of for good reason, and done a lot of good work. And they just reached the point where they were looking to retire. And so Marty and I had a lot of conversations about what we do here and how we do it and how that would fit in for his members. Their primary concern, Jeffrey, in that whole process was about how would their members be cared for if they came over to CCW Safe. And so we spent a lot of time planning that and helping Marty and Gila understand what we do here. And it is very different than what a lot of the other people in the industry do, particularly in the area of really caring for a member. One of the things that ACLDN and CCW Safe had in common is we don't sell insurance. People will use the term policy. We don't sell an insurance policy. There's some very significant reasons we don't do that, not the least of which is you can't insure someone, indemnify them against the outcome of a criminal act. So you might get involved in your self-defense incident. You're going to go to trial. Maybe you lose. An insurance company then would be obligated to ask for the money back that they spent on your behalf. So we never wanted to be in that situation at all. That's just not in our values to provide assistance to a member and say, well, you know what, I'm sorry, we got to have it back because of something that the courts did. So we both had that in common, and that was a big comfort to Marty and Gila. And there's a whole lot of other stuff that we can get into, but we just started in August moving the bulk of the members over into the CCW Safe system, and The transition will take a little bit longer. We're just really pleased to have the opportunity, honestly, and honored that Marty and Gila would choose us to care for their members.
Well, that's a really good point, because I mentioned personal liability insurance enough, and you're delineating that that's not what this is. And some of the other organizations, I think, did that. I think maybe NRA's failed program did that as well. So that's a great illustration. I'm glad you brought that up. And the other thing is, when I called Marty, he was kind of not like the Marty I knew. He was kind of standoffish. So I guess he'd been hit, by other former members or something. But all former Armed Citizen Legal Defense Network members who were current are automatically enrolled in CCW Safe. Is that right? Do I have that right?
That's mostly right. There's a few members in New York, New Jersey, and Washington are staying in the Armed Citizens Network for some period of time. Those are 3 states where CCW Safe, actually almost nobody in the industry were doing business. So they're staying there. They're still covered the same way that they were before in those 3 states. And then the other 47 states have moved over. Now, all of them, even including the New York, New Jersey, Washington State, are being taken care of by our critical response team, which is, our legal folks, our retired homicide investigators, the system that we use to take care of someone and respond initially to their incident. That group of people is taking care of everybody. Just some of the benefits for those other 3 states technically come out of the other organization for a while.
So nobody that was in Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network is out. They are all still covered one way or another.
That's correct. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Because I think there was some scuttlebutt and some stuff flying around that people were being left hanging. So we want to make that clear. Nobody's left hanging. Everybody is still covered.
100%. Yeah. We communicated through, U.S. mail, email, every way that we can to reach everybody and let them know, what's going on. We created some special, website for them that they can log into and see the transition process. And then we have our associates here in our office. We're in Oklahoma City, are totally trained and up to speed. So anybody that calls in, we can work them through it. And then the staff in Washington State, it is still there. And so all the folks that you were used to talking to are all still on the phones there, and they're trained as well. So yeah, no one has been left behind.
So what's the website, first off, where people can go and look?
Yes, the main CCW Safe website is just our name, ccwsafe.com. And then this special site people would receive in the email that just has a lot of FAQs, some videos. If they just check their email, if they don't have it, they can just give us a call or send us a note here at CCW Safe, and we'll send that directly to them. It's not for public consumption. It just has a lot of details for the existing members who are trying to sort out any of the questions that they have. And then, of course, we're answering the phones all day as well.
Now, the way ACLDN worked was, if you were in a direct shooting, you called up and they went over some basic facts, and then they would forward the money to your attorney, or they would, if you didn't have an attorney, they would provide you a list of local attorneys that is on their state list. First off, do I have all that right? And then how is CCW Safe different from that?
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate on how they were doing it. And so now it's somewhat similar. So you're going to call our main hotline number, and that's on the card that you had earlier, and keychain tags and all that kind of stuff. So you call our 800 line 24 hours a day, every day of the year, and there's a quick less than 60-second screening that goes on there to make sure you're in the right place and gather some basic information, right? Particularly current contact information, because sometimes, as you well know, if you've been involved in a serious self-defense incident, you may not have your phone Someone might be calling on your behalf because you're in jail, or maybe the back of a police car.
Yeah, they're gonna seize your phone. Yeah, definitely.
A lot of times they do, right? And so what we try to do is make sure that we get the right contact information, because sometimes it's not the same as what we have in our systems. And so then on that same call, you're patched through to one of our in-house attorneys. Our main attorney is a guy named Don West, who some people know from George Zimmerman trial in Florida about 10 years ago. He was a co-counsel for George Zimmerman. He's been a full-time employee of ours for a long time. And so you get connected to Don, and then he starts to triage the situation. If you have an attorney that you put on file with us, Don will make sure he'll do a quick vetting and make sure that they're appropriate. And then away we go. If you don't have one, and most of our members don't, I mean, the overwhelming majority do not, then we locate and vet the person in your local area based on your specific circumstances. And then we pay for everything up front, nothing out of pocket for the members, and it's unlimited amount of funds for all your criminal defense costs and civil defense costs if you end up in a civil trial. So that's attorney's fees, that can be expert witnesses, investigators, court fees, all the things that go along with your defense are completely paid up front, no out of pocket. So we don't portion off an amount and then see how things go, right? We go right in based on what the member reports to us and start working on their
behalf. Wow. So ACLDN was 10,000, I believe.
Yeah, I'm not 100% certain historically how they handled that, Jeffrey, but we definitely don't do it like that, right? So whatever.
And so yeah, that's great. Well, a couple of things. What's the most you've had to put out to date? And another thing is, how long would it take for you to find and vet a local attorney for somebody who hasn't picked an attorney? Because there's a lot of pressure. You're under a lot of time because your initial appearances are happening. And you need to get that attorney real quick. So what's the time frame for that to happen?
So it's very, very quickly, unless you're in a super remote location. It can be less than an hour. It can be a couple of hours. Again, depends on time of day and where you're at. But we'll always have the plan for you if you do have initial appearance, or depending on, again, it varies from every jurisdiction on how quickly things move. And, sometimes on weekends they don't move quickly, and sometimes they still move just as quickly. So Don is very adept at that process. And then our other attorney is a lady named Jennifer Chance, who's a prosecutor here in Oklahoma City for quite a few years. And so the two of them are really expert at helping select the right person for your situation. And then back to your previous question, what's the most we ever spent? We actually had the first case in this industry. It's been quite a few years ago now, 7 or 8 years, that our member went to trial with a possible murder one outcome. And we spent a little bit over $400,000 on his behalf in that trial and in the process leading up to the trial. And he was acquitted, completely innocent, exonerated totally. But we still, was just a hair over $400,000.
Wow. So for people who don't know, murder means there was premeditation. It's not manslaughter. It's different. And so that when they bring that murder charge, usually they got something to back that up. So that's very significant. And you also said something very significant that I want to mention to the audience too, because I've been targeted, and I've also sat at the front table in federal trials where I've put dopers in federal prison for 30 years, when I've worked with assistant United States attorney, AUSAs, and also in a couple occasions United States attorneys. But you also said pre-trial, and so really that's the most important part. If you can stay out of court, it's best to stay out of court. That's what my great attorney, Mike Picaretta in Tucson, was really adept at, is stop it before it ever gets to court. You agree with that, don't you?
Yeah, of course. If we can get to the point where they're not going to file charges, or we can get them dropped, or whatever the situation is, that's really huge. If you're going to go to trial, it's the whole next level. And it's going to, in the serious cases like that, it's going to consume a lot of time. We had a member go to trial. It took 3 years from his incident before he got to trial. And, your whole life is turned upside down, right? And one of the things that we have in our plans, Jeff, that some other folks don't have, they didn't have in Armed Citizens, is we pay for counseling services. If you have one of these serious incidents, you discharge your firearm, God forbid, and you shoot someone, or even worse, kill them, you need to talk to somebody about that. Like, this is not just carry on with your life. And in fact, we were kind of the innovators in the industry bringing that, where a lot of people do it now. They've copycatted, what we did here. And the same thing with the unlimited funds for defense. There's a couple companies that do that now, and no one did it until we did it first. So, we've been around 14 years now. We were founded by former law enforcement officers and an attorney. So we have a really good understanding of what it takes to be successful in the aftermath of the incident.
That's really significant too, folks, because if it's just like the government providing an attorney, who's paying the attorney? If the government's paying the attorney ain't really working for you. It's who's paying the attorney and also who's paying the counselor. And so having the counselor through CCW Safe then ensures that you can use the counselor. And I'm a chaplain as well, so we're familiar. And also, if you ever go into that, so we taught a whole with my warriorschool.com tactical training company, where we trained over 21,000 soldiers deployed in units as big as 600 during government war on terror. We had a hot wash section, whereas after an incident where you just sit around and hot wash, which is not the after action report, it's just the guys who were there communicating so they don't hate each other, especially if someone's been killed or wounded, but no notes. And if you got into a meeting where there's a counselor or something, put on a recorder or starting to take a lot of notes, get up and walk out. The note should say something like, I saw Jeff Prather on this date. And that's it. And the line crossed through the rest. Little tricks of the trade here, I think that are real important.
The experience we have and that our folks have been through, really just guides everything that we do. We're not. There's a company in the industry, I won't tell you which one it is. It was founded by some guys from the insurance industry. They were law enforcement. They didn't hire people who were former law enforcement, or who were criminal defense attorneys, and they're figuring it out along the way. And I think it's really a disservice to the potential members that they get, that these guys are out there sort of practicing on somebody who needs expert help immediately, without delay, and knows what's going to happen next, and really has some personal skin in the game and how they take care of you. And that's how we do it here.
Can members call in advance and say, hey, this is my area, can you give me an attorney now so I can reach out and maybe just introduce myself, or even put down a small retainer or something?
Well, they would never need to put down a retainer, right? Because we're going to pay for everything. So we don't want them to do that, because we're going to pay. So the whole point of no out of pocket is that we're going to pay. We don't really do it like that. ACLDN did have a program where you could reach out to a local attorney. They would send a list. What Marty and Gila told me is that 99% of the members didn't do it. Some did. Now they can, if they have an attorney that they prefer, Jeff, they can put that on file with us. We have no problem with it. And there's been a number of cases over the years. The attorney that the member would like to use is completely acceptable, and we go for them. It's no problem at all. And then we've had some, where they're just like, hey, Jeff did a great job on my will. Well, that's not really right. And so that's why we just, the vetting isn't anything except us making sure that we get the best person for your circumstances in your city or wherever you are. Like as an example, right? We could have 2 incidents in Phoenix, for example, just up the road from you. And, one's kind of a brandishing incident and the other is a lethal shooting. That's going to be 2 different attorneys. And so, if you call and you have a relationship with the guy who's going to be great at the brandishing stuff, but you have a lethal shooting, we may not be using him. We're probably going to pick somebody else. Now, and it certainly could be the same guy, but most frequently, those lethal shootings, we have a very, very, very high standard of what we're looking for when we're selecting in those particular cases.
No, I'm not in Arizona now. I'm in Oklahoma. So
That's right. That's right.
I'm set now.
It definitely helps.
I'm just calling
Yes.
headquarters there. But when you do, so there's not only is there the emergency number, which you should only call in emergencies, 800-508-0450, but there's also a non-emergency number, 855-639-2297. But if you want to sign up or get some information, you can email support@ccwsafe.com, support@ccwsafe.com, or you can go to the website. But the great thing is, all of those numbers are on the contact card in one place. The way I did it was I had my attorney's business card and I scrawled on the back of it inside my credential case, along with my yellow rights card in English and Spanish on one side and a whole bunch of other stuff I had to carry. And I put that in a plastic thing. This is much handier. Or like I said, the little key fobs are really cool, a really nice feature. And no, give me some of that. You're not going to get vigorous representation for public defender. No, public defender is going to make a deal. Public defenders getting paid minimal. I had a lot of public defenders because they're the doper bar in Tucson, and they're assigned by the court a certain rate. And so nobody wants to go to trial. So everybody wants to cut a deal. And that means, well, yeah, you'll be a criminal, but you'll be a minimum criminal or something like that. So this is really important, I think, to get into. And if you guys have questions in the live chat on Rumble, please go ahead and put them in there. But can you pull up the website and show the variety because there's many more choices now than with Armed Citizens Defense Network.
Yeah, let me just do
under present there.
Yeah, I got a lot of screens going here, so let me just shut a few of those down and get the one that we're going to want here. Bring that up. Let's see. Let's see what this looks like. Scale it down here.
There we go. Great.
Everybody can see that, okay?
Yeah.
It's a little bit big. Okay. So I'm on the plans page right now. If you go up to membership, you can just navigate to the plans. You can compare plans. You can do a lot of different things, but we do have a lot of choices. The first three that you see here would be the ones that most people are going to focus on. The Defender plan, that third one in there for $19 a month. That has, and all of our plans, by the way, have the unlimited defense funds, right? Criminal, civil defense. That's included in everything we do. We don't have any plan that has a cap on defense funds. We don't have a plan that doesn't include our critical response team, and we didn't really get into that. We're the only ones in the industry who do a boots on the ground response for serious incidents where I deploy. Typically, it's a retired homicide investigator, 24 hours to your location.
Let's talk about that for a second then.
Yeah.
Let's go over that. It's very important.
So we have a couple of folks here on staff. Our primary person, I can actually see her outside my office now. Her name's Chris Cunningham. She was 31 years at Oklahoma City PD. She was 17 years as a homicide investigator. She's one of the 7 people that go on standby. When you call our hotline and get patched through to the attorney, there's 7 people that immediately waiting to see what level of incident is. Do we need to have someone who gets deployed on site? And so we have a couple of folks to do that. And so Chris or Gary, one of that team, would actually get on the next flights available, depending upon where you're at, and start assisting.
They fly there.
Yeah, absolutely. So we just had her deployed not too long ago out in California. Not a surprise, right? There's a lot of things going on in California, but it just really makes a huge difference, right? And she's not there to be an investigator and figure out what happened and who did what. that in no way is the capacity she's going there. She's out there, which in law enforcement terms, really, when you think about officer involved shootings, she's there for what they would call peer support. And so she's
He's your
there.
advocate.
Yes. So she's there to help you, help your family, find out what's happening, what's going on next. She might help coordinate some things with the attorney and get you to the attorney. If your incident scene needs to be cleaned up, your house needs to be cleaned up, we have that in our plans. The old armed citizens didn't really have that in their plans, so we'll pay to get that cleaned up by the right kind of folks, right? It's not, Mary Maids or whatever. That's not the right kind of people for those jobs. So she'll coordinate that for you. Just anything that you really need to get you through the first days. I mean, we had a member who was arrested inside his home, and of course we paid the bond premium to get him out within hours of the hearing, but he wanted to go home afterwards. Well, the home's a crime scene. You can't go home. Right? The house, you're not going back to your place. And so as soon as he was released, we had a hotel room for him, and we put him up in a hotel for a couple of days, waiting for his house to get released. And then they released his house at 9 o'clock in the morning on a Monday. We had it cleaned at 10, and then he was back in there right after that. So she or he, depending on who we send, is there to do those types of things and just get you through the process in the first days. And then they're with you the rest of the way through your incident. You have your attorney, we're paying them, and your relationship with your attorney is yours alone. We're not in the middle of that. We're not looking to get any privileged information from your attorneys. The only stuff we require from them is the things we need to just facilitate paying the bills. So it's a very different process than what other companies do. No one else does that.
Well, that ACLDN did not do that either.
No.
So I can tell everybody that that's something that DEA did really well, is when an agent died, and then you were the death agent or you were the family agent. So, one of my buddies died, and because I knew the family, the wife and the kids real well, then you just go there and you just sleep on the couch and you're just getting groceries or welcoming relatives or doing everything. You just do everything for them. And so I can't tell you how valuable that is, because I've done it, and the military does that real well too. So that's an excellent service. And the other thing about that is because she's retired law enforcement, she can be a liaison and a buffer, I guess, to some degree with the local law enforcement. Not that they're going to interact or anything, but
no, we wouldn't have her do that. Your attorney is going to call the shots on all that kind of stuff, but she certainly understands what's next, right? What's law enforcement going to do next? What's the prosecutor going to do next? And so she can help you and your family navigate that when you're not with the attorneys, and what the process looks like. And sometimes, when our person arrives, our member is still in jail. They haven't even had a bond hearing yet. And so again, she'll start with the family, and she'll make sure that all the arrangements are ready. And it's the feedback we get when we have to do that after the fact, and sometimes it's a year later, sometimes it's a few months later, is that really just makes all the difference in the world, because no one, you don't know. I wouldn't know if I hadn't been here for the last 4 years exactly what's going to happen to someone. You have to defend yourself and discharge your firearm. You just think, hey, I've defended myself. Everything's going to be okay. But the process it can be pretty rough to get to the point where everything is finally okay.
It's very rough. It's very rough. And the emotional toll, is extensive. Yeah. So those are all invaluable points as well.
Yeah. And we have back to our programs, and we have a lot of plans out there. If you want to call in, and one of our folks can walk you through them. I have a very good staff here. But for folks who maybe this is the first time they've had a plan like this, I would just suggest the Defender plan is a great choice. It's got everything you need to cover all your defense costs, get your home cleaned up, the response team, bond coverage up to $1 million bond, right? And we would pay the bond premium, which is typically around 10%, to help get you out. If you want to go to the next level, it's really the Liberty Plan, and that includes coverage for civil liability. You know, you were talking about your civil case earlier, and so a couple of these plans, the Ultimate Plan and Liberty Plan, have protection for in case there's a financial judgment against you. And
yeah, so if people don't understand, there's the two sides. There's the criminal prosecution brought by some form of government. There's a civil, which can be brought by the family or anybody, or rarely by the government, but there's not double jeopardy. You can be charged by both.
yeah, you know, I get a lot of questions about it. Just people always want to know, well, how often does this occur, that occur? I mean, there's no, you know, the rate of a self-defense incident, generally speaking, is relatively low across the population, but no less traumatic when they occur. The rate of a civil case that comes after side of a criminal case, that's lower. And then the rate of a civil case that results in a financial judgment against the person is even lower yet. But again, how do you know if you're that one in that group? And there's no way to know that because it's based on the facts of what happened to you. And those vary broadly. Experience here in 14 years. So just, if you don't think you need civil liability protection, that's okay. You can add it to any of our plans at any time. You know, start with the Defender, get in. You'll start getting our newsletter twice a week. You'll have access to all of our content on the website, which is really education and training materials. We have over 1,000 pieces of content for you to consume to help you understand maybe some things that you can do better to protect yourself, how to handle certain situations. So there's, you know, de-escalation tactics. There's all kinds of things that you can get on those materials. And a lot of that, by the way, is available to the public under our resources section, but for our members, there's some other stuff as well. So I would just suggest start with the Defender plan and start consuming that material. We had a member in Los Angeles that had been with us for about 1.5 years, got attacked outside of 7-Eleven, was stopped on the way home to get milk because he had some cereal at home he wanted to eat the next morning. You know, just like any other errand you're going to run. And when he got out of the car, somebody came from the front and somebody came from behind, and he got knocked on the ground. And, you know, he ended up having to use the firearm to save his life. When he called 911, he knew what to do. He told us later, you know, I was really confident in what to do next because I'd binged on all the podcasts and the videos and listened to these retired law enforcement and all these people tell me what to do and how to do it. So, you know, he had described himself to the police so they would know who he was. He had backed himself into a corner in front of the store so he was in the right situation to see what was going on, because the second attacker had already called people to come and get this guy before the police got there. I mean, it's in this terrible situation. But he really, you know, that helped him navigate it better. The police came, he had the firearm on the sidewalk, he laid down, he knew it didn't matter whether he thought he was innocent or not, that when police show up, they don't know who's who. Even if you described yourself, they don't know it was self-defense just because you said it was. And so he had really done a nice job of equipping himself mentally to deal with those first, you know, minutes afterwards. And it made a huge difference for him, and the police were probably nicer to him under those circumstances than they might have been in some other circumstances.
Wow. Yeah, that's excellent. That is really good.
And that, Jeff, by the way, that was, you know, to your point about not getting to a trial, you know, in about 2.5 weeks, we got to the point where the DA declined to file charges, and they gave him a written no file, which is always something we're looking for. But even that, in that instance, you know, in the 2.5 weeks, I think we probably spent $16,000-$18,000, somewhere in that range. And of course, it went away, and that's the outcome we were looking for. But even ones that don't go anywhere, it adds up fast. Even if you just have to get interviewed by the police, you know, if you have an incident where they pretty sure they know what happened and they just want to talk to you, we're getting an attorney for that. You know, they're going to prep you for that. They're going to be in that interview with the police. You know, even then, you know, you're talking about hundreds and then even low thousands of dollars, depending on the extent of it. So the $209 a year, or whichever plan you get on, it pays back pretty quickly if anything ever happens.
I mean, that's the whole point of having a fire extinguisher or firearm in the first place. If you, yeah, that makes total sense. That's really, Really good to hear. So how many plans are there?
Well, technically, there's 9 plans, but so 3 of them are just duplicates where in some states that don't require a permit, it's the same plan for people that don't have a carry permit. So,
And there's the external website, and then once they're a member, you can sign in, and there's more information on the inside for members only. Is that correct?
that's correct. There's some training in there for members only, and then of course they'll be able to see, their page. And to your point, you have the plastic card. Members can download an e-card to their phone, so it can go on their Apple Wallet or their Google Wallet. So that'll be on their phone if they want to do that. So there's some other things that people can do once they get logged in. And for all the Armed Citizens Network folks who might be watching or see this later, if you haven't logged in yet, come over to the website, use your email that you have in Armed Citizens, and set your password up, and then you'll be logged in and good to go. If you have any problems, just give us a call, either in the Washington office or here in Oklahoma City, and we'll help you get logged in.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I don't see, let's see. Nope, I don't see any questions. CWSafe.com is the place to start. And I think this is the new way to go of the services out there. And so I advise all my regular students, all my HMAC, Hingham Arts Center students, to have this plan. And so I'm still advising that. And I thank you so much for taking the time and going over everything and taking over, and also assuring everybody that there was nothing underhanded about that. Marty and Gila were ready to retire, and I think it's in good hands.
Yeah, we appreciate that. Trust me, we were vetted pretty well by Marty and Gila, and even some members of their advisory board. People know Masad, of course. We talked to all those folks during the process leading up to the transaction, and even in the period right afterwards. So again, we truly just feel honored that they've trusted their members with us, and so we want to do right by that, and we're treating them the same.
So you mentioned Masad Ayub. Everybody knows Masad Ayub in the handgun world. So he's still around and advising and helping out. Is that right?
Yeah, he's out there. Yes, we've talked to him a couple of times. We're just working out the details, but I think we're going to see him putting together some training materials for us. And if he's listening, we're going to connect again really soon and try to get that rolling. But when he really got into, just like you are, really got into the details of what we do and how we do it, he was very satisfied with what Marty and Gila had done, so that they could retire.
Yes, I am too. But I haven't got a new email from you yet, and but I will have to log in or something. So, but thank you so much for coming on, and I feel reassured as someone who has been targeted by the government for a real long time. That's always something I want to make sure is covered. So thank you so much, Ken.
My pleasure. Thank you, Jeff.
All right. So I hope that helps everybody. I didn't see any comments, but I would definitely recommend that you sign up or at least look at that ahead of time. You are not going to want to try and look at that if something happens. That's going to be really, really difficult for you to do. So ccwsafe.com is the place to start, or support at ccwsafe.com, support at ccwsafe.com. Or and I wanted to talk to Kent and go over it before I endorsed anything as well, and I have as well. So anyway, not seeing any questions, but I also wanted to cover a couple more things really quickly, and point out that looks like the CIA, which is the head of the intelligence community, the IC, is going after the DNI, the Director of National Intelligence, which is Tulsi Gabbard. And the CIA Director of Analysis is trying to go against her because she is exposing supposedly an undercover agent. And that's not the case. In reality, the CIA has attempted to block Gabbard from exposing how the CIA manipulated the 2017 Intelligence Committee assessment, claiming Russian interference in the 2016 election. Remember the 50 intelligence experts? And then the same thing with the Hunter laptop. And so they're claiming that this Miss Julia Gorganas was a CIA analyst who organized the ICA, and so she's an analyst, and then the CIA changed her status in June, reclassifying her as a covert operative. So analysts are not covert operatives. So I have been a collector. I have been a guy on the ground, a human collector, and I've also been an analyst. But the CIA simply changed her designation to covert so they could classify it all. Because then she's classified, then Gabbard can expose her. It's a typical thing, overclassification, and it's called ORCON. It's a caveat that goes with a classification. The classifications are confidential, secret, and top secret, and a caveat is an additional addendum to that. For example, confidential is the classification, ORCON, originator controlled, which the CIA loves to use, is the caveat. And what that means is whatever the original intelligence is we control it. You cannot modify it. So supposedly the president's supposed to be able to do that, but CIA doesn't very much respond to that. But again, this is more frackery and subterfuge through the intelligence community that is happening here. DNI Gabbard declassified and released the CIA work product and later removed Gergis's security clearance. And by trying to call Gerganas an analyst and active and covert operative, the scheme team knew Gabbard would be unable to defend her publicly, but it did not work. But this is a good indicator that Gabbard is on our side. So that's more good news. Oh, now I got some stuff coming. Now that I let Kent go, now I got some stuff coming in. So is training on rules of engagement appropriate? Oh, yes, certainly. That is very important. And anybody who knows what they're doing goes over that. So ROE, rules of engagement, are very important. And I'll run by them real quick here. I've taught these a million times I had an armed guard company in Arizona, and I had a concealed carry class. Both of these were certified by the state of Arizona. And of course, I was a federal firearms instructor forever for the Drug Enforcement Administration, which means for the federal government. And I've trained all the military branches. So ROE, rules of engagement, are very important. In Arizona, for example, you can put your hand on your weapon, or you can come to a guard position. A guard position would be a lower position where I'm covering somebody. I'm not pointing at them. My finger's off the trigger there, but I'm at his feet covering him. Or I could have it in my waistband with my hand on it. That is not brandishing. Brandishing is, hey, I got a gun, hey. But these are controlled positions. If you feel threatened in the two pillars of deadly force, where you would actually use a handgun, and the movies violate this stuff all the time, they're terrible, is the first one is fear for life, for your life or someone else's life, and the other person have to be in your immediate vicinity. That is, you can't say, I fear for somebody's life across town. And the assailant has the means, ability, and intent. Means to do it, the ability to do it, and the intent. For example, a 3-year-old trying to shoot you with an AK-47, he may want to do it. He has the means, but he does not have the ability to lift up that. So you could not shoot him. That's just an example. Means, ability, intent. And so you have to have fear for your life, somebody else's life, fear for life. And then the second pillar of deadly force is grievous bodily harm or serious physical injury. And that is you're going to be incapacitated so that you can't defend yourself. Your eyes are poked out, your fingers chopped off, you're tied up, you're proned out or something. Those are the two pillars of lethal force under justification. These are terms of art under the law that activate deadly force and therefore rules of engagement. Okay, so I hope that is clear. What's covered under deadly force is attempted murder, rape, kidnapping, and armed robbery and arson. All activate lethal force parameters, but you should always try and de-escalate if you are able. So give me some of that. Is training on rules of engagement appropriate? Yes. It's necessary. Yes. Pamela, I'm a senior lady and do not own a gun. Is one necessary? Well, yeah, I think they are. Of course, you know, I've been carrying guns for a long time, but I would say that you need to have a gun, but you need training. A lot of people just go buy a gun, shoot 50 rounds at a paper target, and put it in a drawer, and think they're going to be able to use it in a crisis self-defense situation in the middle of the night. Not at all. There's a lot to that. If you're going to carry a gun, it's a whole lifestyle, carrying a gun. And I'm speaking to someone who's carried on airplanes, you know, for 19 years, you know, jumped out of airplanes, scuba with them, you know, carried guns in foreign countries, had gun cards in foreign countries, you know, carried a gun everywhere there is way to carry a gun. That becomes a lifestyle. But yeah, I would say, just like if you believe you need a fire extinguisher, then you need a weapon, just like you for emergencies. So Pam off, yeah, I think you should have one. And again, if you are on my patreon.com/Jeffrey Prather and at the Point Patriot $25 a month level, you are then eligible to join my handgun martial arts class, which in fact today I just published, my wonderful daughter published a new video for HMACers about offside carry of items. That is, you know, how you can hold things in your left hand, like this pen, and you can still, empty mag there, completely manipulate your weapon, you know, or your flashlight, as opposed to if you're holding like this, now you can't. So a lot of things about that, and also that you want to have this barrel block in here so that you can't have a live round in there. See that? Can't get a live round in there, and somebody can see, oh, no live round, so that you can be totally safe. Very, very safe. We really push the safety envelope in training. So let's see here. Tulsi needs to be protected. She's the only genuine official now. She's got guards for sure. She's got a guard detail, no doubt. I understand the ROE. If there is a way to back away, you cannot use the firearm. It's not. It's ROE, rules of engagement. It's not ROA. And what you're referring to there, Michael Teen Senior 56, is the Castle Doctrine, and that in some states you are required to back up, and in some states you are not. That is, there's also some states, liberal states, that require you to back up, retreat to the wall, where you can't go further before you can defend yourself. It's an absurd doctrine, but it depends upon your state laws. I tell you, the last shooting that I had to go to in an advisory capacity as a DEA firearms instructor, and I just sat there, they didn't use me, was the agent was sitting on surveillance, and there'd been a child molester in the area. So this guy came out and he thought he'd find the child molester, but it was actually a DEA special agent doing undercover surveillance on a doper. And he came up to the window and pointed his rifle at him, said, "Get out." He said, "I can't." He said, "Get out." He was pointing the rifle at him. And about that time, the DEA agent grabs his gun, puts it in reverse, starts shooting through the side window and then through the windshield, hits a dirt pile, and then puts it in forward and keeps shooting. The first shot hits the guy, all the other shots miss. We had the windshield in evidence forever. And I mean, so when you point a firearm at somebody, you're living on their borrowed time. Unlike the movies where they point guns at each other and they talk, that's not what happens in real life. The gun, and that's why Old West, where the draw thing came, once you pull that gun out, the fight's on. Certainly once you're pointing it in real life, people aren't talking because you can shoot at any time. And you can't talk and shoot at the same time physically. That's why two officers will interview. This is a subject I'm really expert on. I could talk about forever, and I've taught many classes on. So anyway, it depends on your state. You have to retreat to the wall. But in this case, the judge, he was not held, the special agent was not charged or convicted criminally, but he was charged civilly and found guilty of when he came forward, even though none of those rounds hit the guy when he came forward, but because he was advancing, and that's not a state doctrine. That's just the way the liberal judge in Tucson, because Tucson's very left wing, decided the case. So very clear, an opportunity for further study, good to have, not need. That's you. Thank you for your service. You're a real leader. Thank you. Okay, what about court-martial? That does not apply to public elected officials. Courts-martial are only applied to military judge advocates general. To be court-martialed only happens if you're in the military, and most things are taken care of by Article 15s, which are non-judicial punishments. Doesn't really have much to do with what we're talking about here. Would court-martials not be publicly even seen or known? No publicity. Oh, I suppose you're referencing all of the stuff where supposedly on Guantanamo, Hillary is, tried and executed and hung and all that stuff, and that's raw news BS. I don't buy any of that as well. So there's also another drone warfare inflection point out there. And last Tuesday, defense contractor Epirus quietly tested the latest electromagnetic weapon, Leonidas. Leonidas, and that's named after, of course, the famous Spartan king, who, when Xerxes came and said, "Hey, you can still be your king, and you just got to pay tribute to me. So just bring me your weapon." And Leonidas replied famously, "Molan labe, come and take them." And then they were the 300 plus couple of 200 Athenians, I think, died to a man, but that's the beginning of democracy. Shown in the crappy film 300. What should have been made was Gates of Fire. If you haven't read that book, read Gates of Fire. That is fabulous. But anyway, this Leonidas electromagnetic weapon by Epirus against a swarm of 49 quadcopters neutralized them in seconds at Camp Atterbury, Indiana. And Epirus CEO Andy Lowry hailed the force field system as a singularity event. And this is an inflection point because drone warfare has been transforming the battlefield. It has been giving fourth generation forces, such as the Houthis, much more power against these super expensive military industrial complex weapon systems, F-35s and everything. And this changes that again. Anyway, give me some of that. Lay down your arms. I think it was send me your arms. But anyway, doesn't matter. But this Leonidas is a game changer. And war is always changing. War changes with technology. As technology advances, war and politics are two sides of the same coin. Lastly, wanted to wrap up with a note that I got from somebody. Major, thank you for your leadership and teachings. I've started to read the Aramaic version of the New Testament that you mentioned by Alexander. Yeah, it is sitting right here. This is the one we use, and I just finished the New Testament this year. I read the Bible every day, and I just finished the New Testament, getting ready to start on the Old. Anyway, so he said, I started to read the Aramaic version of the New Testament you mentioned by Victor Alexander. It's much more direct and easier for me to understand than the King James Version. Yeah, the King James Version is not supposed to be easy to understand because they don't want you to understand it. He said, I realized during the COVID bioweapon event, the hypocrisy of so many religions, including the SDA, I don't even know who that is, preaching the virtue of Anthony Fauci. My heart is revealed to genocide, democide, the pedo networks. Like your guest from Galileo, Brett admitted, I am flawed and sinner. However, I love the Lord. Thank him every day. He had a emergency appendix, so I have a lot of time to reflect and just wanted to let you know how grateful I am. Okay, we'll pray for you there, Mark, and he is a confidential asset for Team America in a state where we do not have an active team. So very nice to hear that or all of those statements. So that's what's going on. And I have a real special show on Thursday about the Oklahoma City bombing and how the FBI and CIA and ATF ran that whole thing. Really looking forward to that. So remember, the gun is not the answer. You are. The gun is a tool in a toolbox of tactics, techniques, and practices, TTPs. Trump is not the answer. God is. Trump is a temporary advocate in the shifting, stormy sea of political power, alliances, riding the tides. To see the crooked lines of man, find the straight lines of biblical truth. If you are wildly popular, you're undoubtedly wrong. If you are mocked, made fun of, and mistreated, you're on target. If you're waiting for adulation and praise, join the circus. Ignore your critics, cherish your friends. Know your chain of command, delineate your duty, triage your priorities, God, family, clan, tribe, nation. To become spirit-filled, empty ego. The only real initiation for a warrior is battle. True certification for a soldier is the enemy. It's not about how you comport yourself in victory, but in defeat. It's not how you perform in public, but in private. Be grateful, and you will become grace-filled. Our times here are like waterfall drops. Savor and share the moment, because all too soon and suddenly